Igor Shesterkin tangles with Brady Tkachuk, and the Rangers come up with a huge 5-0 win against the Ottawa Senators. Plus, Arthur Kaliyev plays his best game as a Ranger.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1231 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, you know, it's funny. Recently, obviously, the Rangers have been winning a lot of games, and I feel like something that I've been continually saying on this podcast after most of the wins is, the Rangers needed a win like this, or they needed a win like that. They need to win a game that was kind of a low event, affair. They need to win a game where they had to come from behind. They needed an overtime win, a shootout win, whatever the case might be. And they probably also needed a win like this, where it was pretty much in the bag and they largely dominated for most of the game. But I think more so than the players, I think we Ranger fans really needed a win like this because, and Sam and Joe talked about this during the game too, but the way things have gone this season and the position that the Rangers have put themselves in, every game is absolutely enormous right now. You look at how tight the standings are, that just magnifies it that much more, to the nth degree. And I think for once it was nice as a fan to see a game that wasn't really that competitive, with the Rangers winning rather than losing, which is all they did during that, wonderful 2-month stretch that they had there. But it was nice to see the Rangers in the driver's seat, just completely in control of a game. And by the end of this game, you're up 3-0. Once they made it 4-0, I mean, you could pretty much forget about it. And they were on their way, like I said, to this 5-0 win. But it was just nice to be at the end of a game and not have to sweat everything out and just know that they had it in the bag. Really, again, the only drama you could point to is whether or not Igor Shesterkin would get the shutout. And of course, that's exactly what ended up happening. A 20-save shutout for Igor Shesterkin, who continues to play some of his best hockey of the season. But that wasn't really the headline grabber as it pertained to Igor Shesterkin after this game. Now, was it? No. The headline grabber for Igor Shesterkin was the tussle that he had with Brady Tkachuk. I want to go ahead and just kind of break down this play and share my thoughts on everything that happened in the aftermath and whatnot. So, basically, you're in a situation where the Senators get control of the puck in the Ranger zone. Igor denies a stuff-in try, and you've got Tkachuk barreling into Igor. He hit Igor pretty much, pretty squarely there, knocked him back into the post, and at this point, Igor goes down to the ice, and people are going after Tkachuk, and the Senators are trying to say the puck is in the net. One of the refs has his arm in the air for a penalty being called, and pretty much all 10 skaters on the ice were behind the net scrapping at this point. Nobody had dropped the gloves to this point, but everybody was going at it, pretty good. And then Igor gets back up and goes after Brady Tkachuk. And I think what led to this, he wasn't so much going for payback here on Tkachuk. I mean, maybe that was part of it. But I think what really set off Igor is Schneider was tangled up with one of the Senators players, and they're kind of like wrestling, and Schneider ends up, kind of dragging him down to the ground or to the ice. And all of a sudden, Brady Tkachuk goes after Brian Schneider and goes after him from behind. Now, it's not like he cross-checked him in the back of the head or anything like that, but Brady Tkachuk went after him pretty aggressively, and Igor saw this. I think this is a case of Igor Shesterkin, more than anything else, trying to stand up for a teammate and trying to watch out for his teammate. Now, unfortunately for Igor, Brady kind of saw him coming and took a swipe at him. The two of them were going at it a little bit there, and then Rempe was on the ice, and naturally, he went after Brady Tkachuk after all this happened. For the very tail end of this, I don't know exactly when this happened, but eventually Brady Tkachuk and Matt Rempe each dropped their gloves, and they were trying to throw punches. And you've only got one linesman trying to break it up. He's kind of between them and trying to hold them both off because, again, all 10 skaters plus one goalie were pretty much, going back and forth here. And so all the officials, are trying to break up separate fights, separate tussles, whatever you want to call it. But that was kind of a dangerous situation too, because when you've only got one official to break up a fight, it's dangerous for the official, but how do you stop these guys from hitting each other? If you grab one guy, the other guy's going to punch him, right? Typically you see both linesmen jump in there. They both grab one guy and, it's all good after that. But yeah, Igor got in there. Bottom line, I typically don't like the idea of the franchise goalie and the guy that is about to become the highest paid goalie in NHL history jumping into a fight and putting himself at risk the way that Igor Shesterkin did here. But you know what? At a certain point, you got to defend yourself. You got to defend your teammates. And goalie or not, you're still a hockey player. So for this one incident, I'm willing to let it slide. I'm willing to let Igor do his thing. Tkachuk, he's out there causing havoc pretty much throughout the game. I mean, I don't think he did anything that really crossed the line. There was that one incident where he kind of wrapped his arm around Borgen's head and pulled Borgen to the ice, and Borgen got called for the penalty. So that was ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, look, Tkachuk is a menace, and that's part of what makes him so effective. But in this situation here, I just like the fact that, Igor stood up for his teammate and went in there and forgot about being a goalie. I'm a hockey player first. So that got me pretty fired up. Unfortunately, it seemed like Igor was no worse for the wear after that. Obviously, he finished the game, completed the comeback, and was the number one star. So it was all good after that. There were some great quotes from Matt Rempe that I got to share with you guys after this game. He was asked, what he was thinking, what was going through his head when he saw Igor go after Brady Tkachuk, and this is what he had to say about it. A little nervous because I don't want anything to happen to him, but I love it just because he's a competitor. Just want to make sure I get in there and nothing happens. It was awesome. Igor's the man. And another quote from Rempe was, I can't let anything happen to Shesterkin. I had about 8 guys holding me back. Igor is the best goalie in the world. I want to do everything I can to make sure nothing happens to him. And that's what you like to hear. That's obviously a big part of what Rempe brings to the table. He's going to watch out for guys out there, whether it's his line mates or anybody that is really on the roster, up to and including the franchise goalie in Igor Shesterkin. But the other thing that I loved about this, and again, mixed feelings on Igor jumping into a fight, but for this one night, I couldn't help it, man. You guys let me know. Maybe some of you were nervous. Maybe some of you were fired up. I was in the latter group. I was pretty fired up when I saw Igor go after Tkachuk the way that he did here. Let's just try not to make a habit out of this if you're Igor Shesterkin, because we have seen him, kind of get involved with some things seemingly more and more as the years have progressed here. But the thing that I loved about this is that the Rangers just buried the Senators after this. By this point in the game, it's the third period. The Rangers are up 3-0. They've got the game mostly in hand, but 3 goals, you never know for sure what can happen, right? But the Rangers get a power play out of this whole, melee that happened here. And it ends up being a 5-on-3 because Amadio made contact with Igor behind the Ranger net. Now, this one I thought was accidental. It looked like he was trying to avoid him. You never know. It could be one of those accidentally on purpose kind of a deal, but I think he was actually legitimately trying to avoid him. But the bottom line, he got called for the penalty, and it still is a penalty, whether he's trying to avoid him or not. And that makes it a 5-on-3 for the Rangers for 33 seconds. And, as a Ranger fan watching this, and again, this is the part I love. This is the part where the Rangers just put them to bed, buried them, and said, this game is over. You're not getting any points tonight. We're well on our way to this win. You've got Panarin scoring off of a feed from Adam Fox. Fox was down along the goal line. He passed up into the left circle to Panarin, and Panarin buried it 4-0. And then the power play continues because there was just a little bit of time left on that 5-on-3 there. So you still get the 5-on-4, moving forward here. And you've got Cooley scoring in from deep. This was also on the power play. That made it 5-0. He was kind of along the goal line there and looking to pass. And then he very quickly just kind of turned toward the net and scored on the short side, made it 5-0. And that's a good thing too. You really hope that Will Cooley can get it going again. He was, honestly, at times, early in the season, certainly when the Rangers were going through that miserable stretch of hockey, he was their best player. And that's not an exaggeration. He's been in a little bit of a scoring drought recently, but you hope that he gets it going. He scored this goal, and he also had just that wild goal that was disallowed where the puck shot up into the air, and Cooley basically jumped into the air and then took his stick and whacked the puck down and into the net. And you knew right away it wasn't going to count, but it was still a pretty cool goal. And if nothing else, hopefully you just get that scoring touch back. Hopefully that's what's going on with Will Cooley here. And he's a player that the Rangers are going to need. He was huge for them early in the season. And, he's still young. There's going to be some streakiness, I think, when it comes to the offense. When it comes to the physical game, though, Cooley brings it every single night. And that's nice to see as well. So little Will Cooley tangent there. But in just a second, we're actually going to continue talking about Igor Shesterkin because he has been basically keying this Ranger turnaround. And look, there's plenty of guys. Basically, the entire roster is playing better now than certainly they were in November, in December. A lot of guys have picked it up, but I think probably none as importantly as Igor Shesterkin. So I'm going to elaborate on that in just a little bit, and also give some props to some of the guys that provided some secondary scoring, Arthur Kaliyev and Matt Rempe specifically. We're going to do all that fun stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Huge shout out, as always, to the everydayers. We've got Rangers and Flyers on Thursday night at 7 p.m. And this is going to be the final game of a 4-game stretch that we kind of highlighted on here going into it, where the Rangers were going to play 4 straight opponents who were all in the Eastern Conference and all just slightly ahead of the Rangers in the playoff chase. And the Rangers have gone 2-0-1 in those first 3 games. Now they play the Flyers, and the Flyers are now technically behind the Rangers in the standings. Both teams have 50 points, but the Rangers have a game in hand on the Flyers. So it's another huge game, regardless of the fact that the Rangers have jumped them in the standings, at least for now. It's another big one. Got to go out there and win again. You got to just keep winning, because if you falter, again, with how tight the standings are, you're going to be in some trouble and you're going to sink pretty fast. So just got to keep winning. Easy for me to say. But bottom line, Igor Shesterkin, let's keep talking about the franchise goalie here. And I propose a question to Ranger fans who are listening to this, watching this, whatever it might be. Is Igor Shesterkin back? And when I say back, I mean like really, really back. Like big time, easily a top 5 goalie in the league. Vezina candidate kind of netminder in Igor Shesterkin. Now, Igor's not going to win the the Vezina this season, because there was just too rough of a stretch, I think. Not just for him, but for the entire team. He's not going to be able to make up that deficit when it comes to his stat line, and there will be other goalies that get consideration before him. But in terms of just kind of drawing the line in the sand and moving forward here, Igor Shesterkin is looking like an elite goalie once again, which is what he is. I mean, he just wasn't playing like it, and he does go through these funks from time to time. But now, after going through all the struggles, after the Rangers went through all their struggles as a team, we've got Igor Shesterkin with back-to-back shutouts. He made all 20 saves in this game. His last start was against the Jackets. He made all 27 saves there. And to kind of pile onto this, he also beat Utah 5-3. And what was interesting about that game is that even though Igor allowed 3 goals on 31 shots, the last goal that he allowed in the game against Utah was less than a minute into the second period. So we're at a point here now where Igor has gone more than 159 consecutive minutes of completely scoreless hockey. Almost 8 complete periods. That equates to 2 hours and 39 minutes. So that's a lot of hockey for Igor not to allow the puck to get by him a single time. And to kind of further build on this point and kind of illustrate just how good he's been lately, Igor now, in his last 15 games, he has allowed 2 goals or fewer in 10 of them. So that's a heck of a stretch as well. He's 5-0-1 in his last 6 starts. So you watch this, you look at the eye test, you go by whatever stat you want to go by, and I'm thinking, yeah, Igor's back. Now, in this game, as far as like Igor Shesterkin shutouts are concerned, you will see more impressive performances than this one. I mean, any shutout is impressive, but you know what I mean. He got some help from his teammates. Guys were defending. I thought it was a strong night for the defensemen. Guys were actually back-checking. Ottawa was just completely stymied and completely frustrated the entire night. I think it also helps that the Senators seemed like oddly flat in this game, because it's just as big of a game for them as it is for the Rangers, and they just didn't really bring anything. I know the Locked On Senators guys were none too happy about their performance after this game was over. So that helps too. But the bottom line, Igor Shesterkin's getting the job done, and he's playing some excellent hockey. So that's obviously great to see. I think his best save of this game was against Tkachuk. There was a situation, I want to say the second period. You've got Tkachuk going in over the blue line, right up the center of the ice. He takes a shot. The shot is blocked by Borgen, but it goes right back to Tkachuk. And this is like a dangerous play. When you see something like this happen and it just kind of goes right to somebody, this can often turn into a goal, especially where Tkachuk is on the ice. And when you consider what a talented player he is. But Tkachuk tries to bury his own rebound, and Igor reaches it up and just snags it with his glove. So that was the first really big test that Igor got in this game, and there weren't really a whole lot others that were like that. Some nice saves here and there, but to me, that was the one that, if you're going to put together a highlight reel of this game, you certainly got to include that save by Igor Shesterkin. But, one more thought that I have about Igor as it pertains to the scrap that he got into. Now, it doesn't go down as a fight. He was assessed a minor penalty on that play. Of course, the Rangers did come away with a power play when all the dust finally settled. But I did have one more thought that I want to go back to here on Igor Shesterkin and him mixing it up with people. So a lot of us right now, myself included, we're convinced that Igor Shesterkin, before it's all said and done, before he hangs up the skates, hopefully many, many years into the future, he is going to score a goalie goal. It is going to happen. He got very close this season. He has been within a matter of like 3 feet, maybe 4 feet, at least 3 separate times in his career. So I do think that will happen. But something that I don't think anybody has mentioned this as far as like Ranger fans are concerned, and I'm convinced this is going to happen too. Sooner or later, Igor Shesterkin will get into a goalie fight. And when I say goalie fight, I don't mean just like going behind the net and pushing and shoving with Brady Tkachuk and maybe taking a swipe at him. No, I mean the other goalie and Igor Shesterkin meeting at center ice, dropping the glove. Well, I mean, dropping the blocker and the glove, if you will, and basically just throwing down. That's going to happen sooner or later with Igor Shesterkin because he does play with a certain amount of feistiness, a certain amount of fire. He doesn't take any you-know-what from anybody. And there's going to be a situation just like this where everybody on the ice is kind of going at it. Maybe, some pushing and shoving, but maybe 1 or 2 fights break out too. And then, whether it's Igor that jumps into it or the opposing goalie, if it's on the other side of the ice, either Igor or the opposing goalie will jump into one of these big melees. And then the other one is going to challenge the other one. The one goalie will challenge the other goalie. So that's my prediction going forward. Igor Shesterkin, before it is all said and done, he will complete the career Gordie Howe hat trick. And for anybody, I think most people know what that is, but for anybody that might be new to hockey or just hasn't heard that term, the Gordie Howe hat trick is a goal, an assist, and a fight all in the same game. Now with Igor, he's not going to do all 3 of those things in the same game, I don't think. But for his career, oh yeah, he's going to have one of all 3 of those things. Mark it down right now. But, and honestly, I could do without an Igor Shesterkin, like a true fight, because again, we just don't want to see him get injured. But the way things have been going, that is my prediction going forward. That will eventually happen sooner or later. But in just a second, going to shift gears a little bit. Want to give some props to the guys that provided some depth scoring in this game, specifically Arthur Kaliyev, who put the puck in the net twice. Only one of them counted. But I thought this was his best game as a Ranger. And I'm going to elaborate on why in just a second, and also give some props to Matt Rempe. He also scored a goal in this game. We're going to do all that fun stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. We all love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last summer, Green Day and the Smashing Pumpkins at Citi Field in New York. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Now Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you do not have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode again by giving some props to a couple of the guys that provided some secondary scoring in this game. And I think we got to start with Arthur Kaliyev, a recent waiver pickup by the New York Rangers. He scored twice in this game. Unfortunately, like I said just a minute ago, only one of those goals ended up counting. The Rangers actually, if you include the Will Cooley goal, and that one was waved off right away, but you had that one being waved off, and you had a goal by, and now I'm trying to remember, who else had the other goals in this game? So Kaliyev obviously had one of them, and I think, I said it earlier in the episode, that's going to drive me crazy. But bottom line, the Rangers had 3 goals that were disallowed in this game. So if all those goals, and they all all were rightly overturned. There's no argument from me on any of them. But if they had all stood, the Rangers would have won this game 8-0, which is pretty crazy to think about. But bottom line, back to Kaliyev here. I think what's so encouraging about seeing Kaliyev put the puck in the net twice is that his biggest attribute, what we were all told, what everybody sold to us, and we did the crossover with Locked On Kings, and obviously all of us found out that Kaliyev, his greatest attribute is clearly his shot, and we just haven't seen a whole lot of that. Now, he did score a goal not too long ago. There was a scramble in front of the Utah net, and Kaliyev was able to bury it. That was his first goal as a Ranger. But that goal, I mean, it's a good goal. Don't get me wrong. He crashed the net. He got there. He did what he had to do. But that goal didn't come as a result of Kaliyev having this just like masterful, just blistering shot in that situation. But in this game last night, the two goals that he scored, they were both absolute rockets. The first goal, you had Hedl losing a faceoff in the offensive zone. Senators can't clear it. We get Schneider knocking it down. He goes over to Vakanainen. Both of them got assists on this play. Vakanainen tried to shoot. It got deflected. Kaliyev picked it up near the boards and basically just fired it at the net and scored. Just beat the goalie clean, and that made it 2-0. Sounded like it might have hit the post as well. And then the second goal, and again, granted, this one got overturned, but you've got a situation where Kreider with a takeaway in the offensive zone. He passes to Hedl. The shot goes wide. Hedl eventually gets it back. He's moving back and forth along the boards on the right side there and drawing a couple of defenders near him. He leaves the puck for Kaliyev, and both Ottawa defenders went to Hedl. So Kaliyev is by himself now with a clear lane to the net. And I think of all the situations that Kaliyev can be in, again, based on what we've seen and based on what we've been told about him, this is the situation that you want. You want him going to the net with a full head of steam and able to take advantage of what, again, seems to be far and away his greatest attribute, his shot. That's exactly what he did. I believe this one was just under the blocker there, just absolutely fired. And as he was moving toward the net here, I actually said count it. It felt like this was going to go in, and you saw Kaliyev in this situation. We knew that he had scored earlier in the game, so he was able to beat the goalie again here. Unfortunately, the Senators challenge again. Once again, it is overturned due to offside. This one wasn't as blatantly offside as the first one was, but I do think, looking at the replay, they got the call right. But the bottom line, Kaliyev put the puck in the net twice, took advantage of his awesome shot twice, and as importantly as anything, starting to look like he's getting a little bit more comfortable out there. I'm going on and on about his shot. He is going to have to continue to develop the other parts of his game if he's going to shake that reputation of being sort of a one-dimensional player. I watch him. I feel like his passing has been pretty good at times. He's linked up with a couple. I mean, he doesn't have any assists yet, but he has made some good passes in the offensive zone. At least a couple of times has set up one of his teammates for a decent scoring chance. Defensively, I feel like there's times where he gets a little bit lost out there in the defensive zone specifically, but I really want to zero in on that in some future games here and just kind of really watch him and what he's doing when he's away from the puck. As far as like his skating goes, it's about average as far as I can tell. But you know what? There's room for improvement in all those areas. And if nothing else, he proved why, people were so hyped about his shot and why we were told so repeatedly once the Rangers claimed Kaliyev that, yeah, that shot is awesome. And sooner or later, you're going to see it. Well, we finally saw it in this game. But Kaliyev was not the only Ranger to provide some secondary scoring in this one. How about that Matt Rempe goal? And how about that Adam Edstrom assist? There's actually a stat regarding that goal with Rempe and Edstrom that I'm going to share in just a second. That's kind of like, it's funny, but it's awesome all at the same time. You'll see what I mean in just a second. But as for the play itself, you start with the Rangers winning a puck battle in their own zone. They're kind of grinding away in the corner there. They're able to get the puck out, and, we get Edstrom passing to himself, basically, like into the offensive zone, got it to himself off the boards, and then makes a centering pass for Rempe. Rempe had gotten past everybody, and he gets to the net. Little forehand, backhand, lifts the puck into the net for a goal. And, for anybody that says Matt Rempe is just a goon and he has no business in the NHL and he's got no hockey talent whatsoever, show them this goal. Look, I don't think Matt Rempe is ever going to be an offensive stalwart by any stretch of the imagination. And clearly the Rangers like to pick and choose their spots when they use him. You're not going to see him out there in a tie game late in the third period or a one-goal game either way. But you know what? Rempe he's a better hockey player than I think people are going to give him credit for. That's a narrative that's been pushed by people that don't like the Rangers and people that don't like Matt Rempe. Again, there's far more talented players in the league than Rempe, but this idea that he's just like completely lost out there and completely clueless, that's not true either. And I think this goal that he scored here is Exhibit A. But back to that stat I mentioned just a second ago. So I wrote this down word for word because I got to make sure I get it right here. So Rempe and Edstrom each tied an NHL record on this goal. You heard that correctly. Adam Edstrom, Matt Rempe tie an NHL record. This was tweeted out by Peter Baugh of The Athletic. So the combined height of Matt Rempe and Adam Edstrom is 13 feet 3 inches. And with that goal there, they are now tied with Zdeno Chara and Dougie Hamilton for the tallest combination of a goal scorer and a primary assister on a single goal in NHL history. So how's that for a stat? How's that for a little fun fact? And how's that for a future trivia question? The downside is I don't think they ever have a way to break that record. I don't think they're still getting taller, right? So they might have to settle with just being tied for that record. Interestingly, though, Peter Baugh added this in a separate tweet. Chara and Hamilton actually did this 3 times. So, Edstrom and Rempe, they got a little bit of work to do. Maybe they can eventually catch them. That would be fun to see. Look, it's a funny stat. It's a quirky stat, but you think about it a little more, it's actually a really cool stat too. Like, I was wondering myself, like, how many goals have been scored in the history of the NHL? And I Googled it because, like, maybe somebody has this information, and I don't have any way of verifying this as being 100% accurate because, stats weren't kept as rigidly, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, et cetera, as they are now. But with that said, per statmuse.com, there have been a total of 384,928 goals scored in NHL history. And you know what? They hold the record out of all those goals. And granted, it is for a funny thing, but Matt Rempe and Adam Edstrom are now in the record books. That's a really cool thing. And one of these Ranger beat reporters absolutely must ask Matt Rempe about that. I mean, they should really ask both of them, but I think Rempe will be good for a funny quote or two if he's asked about that. We will see. But good stuff all around the secondary scoring. We also had Schneider, Miller, and Vakanainen all getting assists in this game. And hey, we had Rempe, Carrick, and Edstrom getting some power play time at the end of the game. Carrick with another multiple point game. He ends up with 2 points, I believe it was. And he also broke his skate twice in this game. His skate blade broke. So 2 points and 2 skate blades broken. I don't really know what to say about that, but again, kind of just a quirky fact for the end of today's episode. Figure we could pretty much call it there. As far as JT Miller is concerned, there's no real tangible update other than just to mention the fact that JT Miller did in fact play in last night's game for Vancouver, Tuesday night's game. The Canucks played the Sabres and they lost 3-2. Miller in that game did have a primary assist on a goal by former Ranger Phil DiGiuseppe. The only reason I mentioned Miller here is there was some speculation both over the weekend as well as for this game here. The Canucks might choose to make Miller a healthy scratch just because, they're closing in on a trade, whether it's with the Rangers or anybody else. And obviously, if you're close to a trade, you don't want to have him going out there and getting hurt and nixing the entire thing. So, I figured I'd just throw out that little piece of information here as the JT Miller watch continues. But I figure we can call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well at JChick17. Once again, at JCHIK17. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.